time now for our weekly partnership segment with The Lever. Joining us this week, we have great journalist Matthew Cunningham-Cook. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man.
Great to see you too, Krystal and Saagar.
So let's go ahead and put your latest piece here up on the screen. The headline is Wall Street Readies an Avalanche of Lies. The subhead is Public pensions with investments in private equity are about to face a reckoning, but they have no way of knowing how bad it might get. So you're really sounding the alarm here about a potential mass financial risk for public pension funds. Just lay out what you found.
Yeah, so what we know is that the largest single source of capital, potentially besides sovereign wealth funds, for private equity and hedge funds and private equity real estate firms are public pension funds, the pension funds of firefighters, cops, teachers, social workers, bus drivers, whose pension funds decide to make these risky investments in these high-fee, low-transparency vehicles. And what we know, though, is that there's been a lot of questions about how accurate the performance they report is, because there's no open audit of the underlying performance of these investments. So with the stock market downturn, the big risk that's being raised is that these investments tend to be highly leveraged. So in a strong market, that means that their returns are supposed to be amplified, even though that hasn't really been the case because of the enormous fees that are being paid that drag on the performance. But in a bear market, there's a real risk that the losses are going to be amplified, and you're still paying the fees.
Right.
And so it's a real risk for these public pension funds.
One of the things that you pointed to is about the secrecy that's built into this industry. Can you just outline that for us?
Yeah, I mean, basically about 20 years ago, journalists started poking around and asking some questions about these investments right as they were planning a big upswing. And so they hired lobbyists to go all around the country and exempt critical information about these investments from public views. So that includes the contracts with them. They're some of the only contracts that are not subject to public disclosure. You can't even get a redacted copy of the contract in most states, in places like New York or New Jersey or California. They exempted discussions about these investments from open meeting laws. They made it so the underlying cash flow reports are not subject to disclosure either. So it leads to a lot of problems, because the less transparency there is, the more likely that there are some, frankly, insane provisions. So there's one guy who writes about this is a guy named Jeffrey Horowitz, who's a wealthy heir whose family office invests in these types of investments. And he's like, I've seen managers propose that I agree to a full waiver of fiduciary duty. And I guarantee to you that family offices tend to be much more discerning than public pension funds are.
Right.
And that's in part because there's a huge revolving door of public pension fund staff and Wall Street, and there's huge incentives for the staff to give Wall Street whatever they want. And the trustees are either politicians or they're folks who typically don't have the most investment experience. And so it can lead to problems like this. Now, there's plenty of trustees with investment experience who make the same bad decisions, let's be clear. But it's a problem in terms of deferring to the staff on everything.
So what are the real risks here in terms of how ordinary people might be impacted?
Yeah, I mean, what we saw in the aftermath of the financial crisis, so the last time the market was doing as poorly as it is now, basically, is there was a coordinated 50-state attack on public pension benefits. So this was funded by John Arnold and the Koch brothers, and they really went after public pensions. And they changed accounting rules to make it so they would look less funded. And at the same time, famously supporting politicians who were both pushing cuts to accrued benefits, like Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, and also at the same time massively increasing pension investments in hedge funds and private equity. So that's Gina Raimondo, that's former Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner. There's a host of and people who also have deep connections to this industry. So Raimondo is also a former venture capital executive. Yeah, that's the real risk, is that they're going to use these bad investments as another excuse to go after the ordinary benefits of workers. And so I worked closely last year, actually, with the unions in Vermont to stop a heinous pension cutting effort. And basically, we won because we showed the public how poorly the investment decisions were. And as soon as we started talking about that, they backed off. So it shows kind of both, I think, on the one hand, how verboten discussion of how bad these investments are on the one hand, and two, how much the powers that be don't want to talk about their golden goose. Because again, I mean, the largest campaign contributors are from this industry. Steven Schwartzman on the GLP side, Shelley Pingree's ex-husband, Donald Sussman on the Democrat side, major donors to both parties.
Yeah. And as always, follow the money. Matthew, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.